Have you ever noticed something strange about truly wealthy people? I'm talking about the ones with generational wealth, the ones who could buy anything they want without checking their bank account. They don't look rich. I mean, they really don't. No flashy logos, no gold chains, no screaming their wealth from the rooftops. Meanwhile, the person driving the brand new BMW with the luxury watch might be drowning in debt. And here's what nobody talks about. The people who actually have money don't need you to know about it. Here at Simple Money, we've spent years analyzing how wealthy people actually behave versus how broke people pretend to behave. And today, I'm going to reveal why the truly rich have completely opted out of the looking rich game. And more importantly, what that means for your financial future. Because here's the thing. Understanding this shift isn't just about judging who's rich and who's faking it. It's about understanding a fundamental truth about wealth that could completely change how you think about money. So let's talk about why the rich don't care about looking rich anymore, and why that matters way more than you think. Here's what's really happening in our culture right now. We're living through the biggest wealth display crisis in human history. And I don't mean crisis for rich people. I mean crisis for everyone trying to build wealth. Think about it this way. 50 years ago, if you wanted to show off wealth, you had limited options. A nice car, a big house, maybe some jewelry. That was pretty much it. The barrier to entry for looking rich was actually being somewhat rich. But social media changed everything. Now you can rent a Lamborghini for a day. You can stay at a luxury resort and make it look like you live there. You can buy fake designer goods that look real in photos. You can create an entire lifestyle brand around wealth you don't actually have. The cost of appearing rich has dropped to almost nothing, but the cost of actually being rich, that hasn't changed at all. And here's where it gets interesting. Truly wealthy people noticed this shift. They watched as looking rich became democratized. They saw Instagram influencers with rented cars and leased lifestyles getting the same social validation they used to get, maybe even more. And you know what they did? They opted out entirely. Because here's what most people don't realize. Rich people were never actually trying to impress you. They were trying to impress other rich people. That was the whole game. Signals of wealth were a way to communicate status within their social circle. But when everyone can fake those signals, they become worthless for that purpose. So wealthy people developed an entirely new language. A language of quiet confidence, of understated quality, of not needing to prove anything to anyone. This is what I call the Great Wealth Signal Migration, and it's completely changed the rules of the game. The first thing you need to understand is what I call the logo paradox. And this one is absolutely fascinating when you really dig into it. Real luxury brands have two product lines. Most people don't know this. They have the stuff with big, obvious logos that screams the brand name, and they have the stuff that's actually higher quality with minimal or no branding. Guess which one costs more? The one without the logo. And guess which one actually wealthy people buy? Same answer. Here's why this matters. The logo isn't for you to enjoy. The logo is for other people to see. You're literally paying extra money to become a walking advertisement for a company. Think about how wild that is. A real Hermes bag might cost $10,000 and have a tiny discreet logo you can barely see. Meanwhile, someone buys a Coach bag with logos plastered all over it for $300, specifically because they want everyone to know it's Coach. The wealthy person doesn't need you to know it's Hermes. They know. Other wealthy people know. That's enough. But here's what makes this even more insidious. Luxury brands have figured out this split. They make huge profits off logo-heavy products sold to people trying to look rich. Those products subsidize the actual luxury goods they sell to people who are rich. You're not buying luxury. You're buying the appearance of luxury. And actual luxury laughs at the appearance of luxury. I've seen this play out in the real world over and over. Walk through a truly wealthy neighborhood. Count how many people are wearing clothes with visible designer logos. Now walk through a middle-class neighborhood. The difference is staggering. The truly wealthy are wearing a $2,000 plain white t-shirt that looks like a $20 t-shirt because they know the difference in quality. They can feel it. They don't need you to see a logo to validate their purchase. This brings us to the second pattern, and this one might actually blow your mind. I call it the reverse signal strategy. Here's how it works. Once you have real wealth, you start doing something that seems completely backwards. You start deliberately downplaying your wealth in specific situations. Not because you're humble, not because you're trying to be relatable, but because you've learned that displaying wealth makes you a target and creates problems. Let me give you a real example. I know someone who's worth about $40 million, built a successful tech company, sold it, set for life. This person drives a 10-year-old Toyota Camry. When I asked about it, here's what they said. Every time they drove something nice, people treated them differently. Service providers charged them more. Friends expected them to always pick up the tab. Family members showed up with investment opportunities and sob stories. The nice car wasn't making their life better. It was making their life more complicated. So, they bought the Camry. And suddenly, contractors gave them fair quotes. Friends split bills normally. They could move through the world without the wealth target on their back. That's reverse signaling, using the absence of wealth signals strategically. But here's what makes this really interesting. This only works if you have real wealth. If you're broke and you drive a Camry, you're just broke with a Camry. The reverse signal strategy requires actual wealth to reverse signal against. It's like a secret handshake. Wealthy people can spot other wealthy people through subtle signals that have nothing to do with logos or obvious displays. The quality of someone's watch band, not the brand. The cut of their clothes, not the label. How they talk about money, not how much they spend. They've developed an entirely new language that excludes people trying to fake it. The third pattern is what I call the time horizon shift. And this one explains so much about why wealthy people make the choices they do. Here's the core insight. Poor people optimize for looking rich today. Wealthy people optimize for staying wealthy forever. Those are completely different games with completely different rules. When you're trying to look rich, you make decisions based on immediate social return. Will this impress people? Will this make me look successful? Will this get likes on social media? You buy the luxury car because it signals success right now. You buy the designer clothes because they make you look wealthy today. You go on expensive vacations because they create the image you want immediately. But every single one of those decisions depletes your resources. You're trading actual wealth for the appearance of wealth. And that's a losing trade if you actually want to build wealth. Wealthy people think in decades. They think in generations. They're not asking what makes them look rich today. They're asking what keeps their family wealthy for the next 100 years. So they make completely different choices. They drive reasonable cars that don't depreciate much. They live in nice but not extravagant houses. They invest the difference. Here's a specific example that illustrates this perfectly. I watched two people make different choices with the same amount of money. Person A got a $60,000 bonus. They bought a luxury car. 3 years later, that car was worth $30,000. They'd lost $30,000 to depreciation, plus probably another $10,000 in higher insurance and maintenance. Person B got a $60,000 bonus. They bought a $25,000 reliable car and invested $35,000. 3 years later, the car was worth $15,000, and the investment was worth about $50,000. Person A looked richer for 3 years. Person B became actually richer by $40,000. That's the time horizon shift. One decision optimized for appearance, the other optimized for reality. And here's what makes this cruel. The appearance of wealth actively prevents the accumulation of wealth. Every dollar you spend looking rich is a dollar you can't invest in becoming rich. The fourth thing wealthy people understand is what I call the confidence gap. And this might be the most important pattern of all. Here's what I mean. When you feel insecure about your financial position, you compensate with displays. You buy things that prove your worth to yourself and others. You need external validation that you're doing okay. But when you have actual financial security, that insecurity disappears. You don't need to prove anything to anyone because you're not trying to convince yourself anymore. Think about the psychology here. Why do people buy luxury brands? Not because they need a better product. A Honda Civic gets you from point A to point B just as well as a BMW. You're not buying transportation. You're buying how it makes you feel about yourself. You're buying relief from financial insecurity. You're buying a token that says, "Look, I've made it. I'm successful. I'm worthy." That's not a luxury purchase. That's therapy. Really expensive therapy. Wealthy people don't need that therapy because they have real financial security. They know they're fine. They know they're successful. They don't need a logo to remind them or to remind you. This is why you see middle-class people driving luxury cars they can barely afford, while wealthy people drive Hondas. The middle-class person needs the car to feel secure. The wealthy person already feels secure. The car isn't the point. The confidence is the point. And real confidence doesn't need props. Here's where this gets really interesting. The confidence gap is self-perpetuating. The more you spend trying to look wealthy, the less actual financial security you have. The less security you have, the more you need displays to compensate. It's a vicious cycle. Breaking out requires doing the uncomfortable thing. Accepting that you're not wealthy yet. Accepting that you don't need to look wealthy. Accepting that your worth isn't tied to what you drive, or wear, or display. That acceptance is the first step toward actual wealth, because it frees up your resources to build real security instead of fake displays. The fifth pattern is what I call the access economy. And this one reveals how wealthy people think about resources completely differently. Here's the insight. Wealthy people have stopped buying things and started buying access, not because they can't afford to buy things, but because ownership has become a liability rather than an asset for many goods. Let me explain what I mean. If you're truly wealthy, why would you own a yacht? It depreciates. It requires constant maintenance. It sits unused most of the year. You need to hire crew. You need to dock it somewhere. It's a massive ongoing expense. Instead, wealthy people join yacht clubs or fractional ownership programs. They get access to multiple yachts in multiple locations without any of the ownership headaches. They pay for usage, not ownership. Same with vacation homes, same with exotic cars, same with private jets. The wealthiest people have shifted from owning these assets to accessing them through membership or rental programs. This seems backwards, right? If you can afford to buy something, shouldn't you buy it instead of rent it? But that's poor person thinking. That's thinking like someone who sees ownership as the ultimate goal. Wealthy people see ownership as a tool. They only own things when ownership makes sense financially. Here's a real example. I know someone who sold their vacation home in Aspen. It was worth about $5 million. Beautiful property. They'd owned it for 15 years. They sold it and joined a luxury vacation club instead. For about $50,000 a year, they now have access to properties all over the world. Mountains in the winter, beach in the summer, cities whenever they want. They freed up $5 million in equity that was sitting in a house they used 2 weeks a year. That $5 million is now invested in generating about $300,000 a year in passive income. They upgraded their lifestyle, reduced their stress, and increased their wealth all at once. By giving up ownership. That's the access economy mindset. It's not about what you own. It's about what you can use when you want to use it. Meanwhile, someone trying to look rich might buy a vacation home they can't really afford because ownership signals wealth. They're now house poor, stressed about maintenance, and locked into one location. They're winning the looking rich game and losing the being rich game. But here's what nobody wants to admit. And this is where things get really uncomfortable if you're honest with yourself. The reason most people are obsessed with looking rich has nothing to do with actually wanting to be rich. It's about something much deeper and much more primal. It's about status. It's about mate selection. It's about tribal belonging. It's about proving to yourself and others that you matter in a world that often makes you feel like you don't. Looking rich is a shortcut. It's a way to feel important without doing the actual work of becoming important. It's a way to feel secure without building actual security. It's a way to feel successful without achieving actual success. And our brains are wired to take shortcuts. We're wired to care what other people think. We're wired to seek status and validation. That's not a character flaw. That's evolution. For most of human history, status meant survival. Being low status in your tribe could get you killed or expelled. Your brain developed powerful mechanisms to seek and maintain status. But evolution doesn't care about your financial future. Evolution cares about reproduction and survival. And in the modern world, those instincts actively sabotage wealth building. Your brain sees a luxury car and thinks, that will increase my status and improve my mating prospects. It doesn't think, that will decrease my net worth by $50,000 over 5 years and delay my financial independence by 3 years. You have to override your instincts to build wealth. You have to recognize that the status signals that mattered for survival don't matter for prosperity. Wealthy people have made this mental shift. They've decoupled their self-worth from external displays. They've found other sources of confidence and validation. They've accepted that most people won't know they're rich, and that's actually a feature, not a bug. This is the hardest part. Because it requires you to be secure enough to not care what strangers think. And most people never get there. Let me tell you about two people I've watched over the past 5 years. I'm going to call them Marcus and Jordan. Both started in similar places. Both had good jobs making about $80,000 a year. Both wanted to build wealth. Marcus took the traditional path. He wanted to look successful because he felt it would help his career and his social life. So when he got promoted and started making $95,000 a year, he upgraded everything. He bought a luxury SUV, $65,000, financed over 6 years. He moved to a high-rise apartment downtown, $2,500 a month instead of his previous $1,500. He started buying designer clothes, going to expensive restaurants, taking luxury vacations. From the outside, Marcus looked incredibly successful. His Instagram was aspirational. His friends were impressed. He felt like he'd made it. But here's what Marcus didn't realize. His lifestyle inflation matched his income increase exactly. He was saving the same small percentage he'd always saved. He was actually going backwards because his car was depreciating and he was paying interest on the loan. 5 years later, Marcus had a net worth of about $40,000. Most of that in his retirement account. He owned nothing. He couldn't afford to lose his job. One major emergency would financially devastate him. He looked rich. He wasn't rich. And worse, he trapped himself in a lifestyle he now had to maintain to keep up appearances. Now let me tell you about Jordan. Jordan had the same promotion, the same income increase, but Jordan made different choices. Jordan kept the same apartment, bought a 3-year-old Honda Accord for $22,000, paid in cash, kept wearing the same clothes, kept most of the same lifestyle, and Jordan invested the difference. About $1,500 extra per month. $18,000 per year, going straight into index funds. From the outside, Jordan looked exactly the same as before the promotion. Friends probably wondered why Jordan wasn't living it up. Social media was boring, nothing to signal success. But here's what happened over those same 5 years. Jordan's investments grew to about $120,000. Plus the car was paid off and still worth about $12,000. Net worth of $132,000. Jordan could lose their job and be fine for a year. Jordan had options. Jordan had security. Jordan was actually building wealth. The difference wasn't intelligence. It wasn't willpower. It wasn't luck. It was understanding one simple truth. Looking rich prevents being rich. And being rich is better than looking rich. Marcus optimized for appearance. Jordan optimized for reality. 5 years later, the results weren't even close. And here's the cruel part. Marcus will probably keep making the same choices. Because he's trapped now. He can't downgrade without admitting to everyone that he was living beyond his means. His identity is tied to his lifestyle. Jordan has freedom to keep building, to make choices based on what actually works, not what looks good. That's the real difference between wealthy people and people trying to look wealthy. It's not about the money they have today. It's about the freedom they're building for tomorrow. Here's what most people don't realize. And this is the key insight that changes everything once you see it. Wealth isn't about the stuff you have. It's about the problems you don't have. Let me say that again because it's crucial. Wealth isn't about the stuff you have. It's about the problems you don't have. A wealthy person doesn't feel wealthy because they can buy a luxury car. They feel wealthy because they never worry about their car breaking down and not being able to afford the repair. They don't feel wealthy because they have designer clothes. They feel wealthy because they never stress about money. Ever. The entire game of looking rich is about acquiring stuff. But the game of being rich is about eliminating stress and creating options. These are opposite goals that require opposite strategies. When you optimize for stuff, you increase your expenses. Higher expenses mean you need more income. More income need means more stress, more dependence on your job, less freedom, more problems. When you optimize for freedom, you decrease your expenses. Lower expenses mean you need less income. Less income need means less stress, less dependence, more freedom, fewer problems. The person who looks rich is more stressed than the person who is rich. Because looking rich is expensive. Being rich is profitable. This is why truly wealthy people have opted out of the appearance game entirely. They discovered something better than admiration from strangers. They discovered peace of mind. They discovered the luxury of not caring what anyone thinks. The luxury of making decisions based on what they actually want, not what impresses people. The luxury of privacy and anonymity. You can't buy that luxury with logos and displays. You can only access it by building real wealth and letting go of the need for external validation. That's the shift. From seeking validation to not needing it. From proving your worth to knowing your worth. From looking rich to being free. So let me bring this all together. The logo paradox, the reverse signal strategy, the time horizon shift, the confidence gap, the access economy. These aren't just interesting observations about rich people. They're a roadmap for building actual wealth in a world obsessed with the appearance of wealth. The wealthy have opted out of the display game because they've learned something crucial. The game is rigged against wealth building. It's designed to extract money from people seeking validation, not to help people build security. Every luxury brand, every lifestyle product, every social media platform is optimized to make you feel like you need to display more to be worth more. That's not by accident. That's the business model. Wealthy people saw the game and quit playing. They're playing a different game now. A game with different rules. A game where the goal is freedom, not admiration. Security, not status. Privacy, not attention. And here's the beautiful thing. You can start playing that game today. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait until you're wealthy. You just need to make a choice. The choice to stop optimizing for appearance and start optimizing for reality. The choice to build actual security instead of displaying fake success. The choice to value your future freedom more than your current image. It's uncomfortable at first. Your brain will resist. Your friends might not understand. Your social media might get boring. You'll feel like you're missing out while everyone else is living it up. But 6 months in, you'll have savings. A year in, you'll have investments. 2 years in, you'll have options. 5 years in, you'll have freedom. And the people who were busy looking rich? They'll still be trapped in the same cycle. Still stressed, still dependent, still one emergency away from disaster. The question isn't whether you can build wealth. It's whether you can give up looking wealthy long enough to become actually wealthy. The truly rich don't care about looking rich because they've discovered something better. They've discovered that real wealth is invisible from the outside. It shows up in your bank account, not your driveway. In your freedom, not your wardrobe. In your peace of mind, not your Instagram feed. You can join them. But first, you have to be willing to look completely ordinary while you build something extraordinary. That's the real secret, the one nobody tells you. The wealthy look boring because becoming wealthy is boring. It's consistent, it's patient, it's unglamorous. But it works, and working beats looking good every single time.